So by way of introduction, my name is Jessica Baird. I am part of the social impact team at BlackRock. And I am really excited to be here with Rohit, not only because as BlackRock has opened its doors here in Atlanta, Rohit has served as a real guide for us, but also because Rohit and I have known each other for 4-ish years now, and I've gotten the opportunity to see the Center for Civic Innovation really grow and thrive, which I'm excited to have Rohit tell you a little bit about. Yeah. But let's start with Atlanta. When I came down here for the first time about a year ago, we talked a lot about its history. We talked about civil rights movements. We talked about philanthropy. We talked about the role of corporations. What do you see in Atlanta today?
Yeah. How's everyone doing? Good? You look enthralled, so this is perfect. Last night was actually our 5th birthday party for the Center for Civic Innovation, and so I woke up like this, which is perfect. But you know, Atlanta, for me, first and foremost, Jessica, it's home. It's the place where I grew up. It is a city that I love very, very dearly, and it's also a city that has recognition around the world. Where when people think about Atlanta, they know our skyline, they know the incredible companies that have been here, the history that this city has had. But also, Atlanta today is a tale of two cities. It has the highest income inequality gap in the United States. There's a 96% chance if you're born poor in Atlanta, you die poor in Atlanta. And so if you love your city, then it is also your responsibility to recognize the things that may not be living up to its full potential. And I think Atlanta has everything it needs to address these issues. But I also think Atlanta is in a really interesting inflection point in its history, where it has to decide how is it going to continue to grow, but also how does it make sure that everybody who lives here already has the opportunity to grow with it, not be left behind or displaced because of it.
So there's a lot to do.
Yeah, no small task.
So Center for Civic Innovation, what is civic innovation?
Yeah, so we around the world, we toss around the word innovation a lot. And actually, we weren't, for us, civic innovation is I like to look at it as there's social innovation and then there's civic innovation. Social innovation was created to say, particularly in the entrepreneurship space, to create a vertical that said, so we can have a local economy, we can have economic products and services, but maybe based on the profit that we make on that, we can also do a little bit of good. And I think that's fine. The Tom's shoe model is nice, right? Where you buy a shoe and then you could give away a shoe because of the profit margin you had on top of it. But it doesn't always address the systemic issue, which is often civic in nature. When I think about civic innovation, it's about looking at our systematic infrastructure that we have in the public sector. That means how we view and value the issues that affect our people, and how we actually view the products and services that are meant to address issues head on. So civic innovation is about not just creating a new widget or having a cool app that solves an issue. It's really about thinking, how do we make sure that this problem gets put out of business, not that we create new businesses that address problems.
So you run the Center for Civic Innovation.
Yes, yeah. We don't do any of that, so it's perfect. The Center for Civic Innovation, as I said, turned 5 last year, and it wasn't meant or designed to be an organization. It was a collection of really good humans that got together 5 years ago and said, if this is the state of our city, we got to do something about it. And all of us worked in different sectors. Some of us worked in government. Some of us worked in the creative economy. Some of us worked in nonprofit sector. Some of us were in finance. But all of us got together and said, where we're united is that we really give a damn about our city, and we want to do something about it. And so the Center for Civic Innovation is first and foremost a community. It's a community of people who really care about this city and want to see it thrive and get better. but there are two major things that we do. The first thing that we do is we're trying to bring innovation directly into the public sector through new products, services, and programs that address issues head on. And those solutions should be designed and built by people who live here. I live by the motto that the things that are built for us without us are not for us. And so for me, it is important for cities like Atlanta to recognize we already have the talent we need and the people who understand these issues head on. What would happen if you treated an individual who could figure out how all seniors could age inside their homes? What if you could treat them with the same intentionality and same value as we do a technology company that may be trying to build an app to find easier parking spaces? Why does our economy not value organizations that are solving social and systemic issues as much as it does other products and services? So that's the first thing we do, is we try to create an investment class out of social and civic entrepreneurs. And now what I'm not talking about is those people who now have majored in social entrepreneurship and have a business card that says, look at me, I'm a social entrepreneur. The greatest social entrepreneurs don't call themselves that. They call themselves farmers, teachers, artists. These are incredible people that if we just valued them better, we'd be better off as an economy. So the first thing we do is we make direct investments in those types of initiatives. The second thing we do, though, is we address the systemic issues head on by trying to strengthen community engagement in Atlanta. Because at the end of the day, you can build new products and services all day long, but if you're not addressing the fact that we do not, as cities, have a good way for people to engage with the public sector, then you're not going to be able to solve these things that are generational issues. And we have a huge issue with civic engagement in Atlanta, and it represents what's happening around the country. Less than 15% of people trust the public sector today. And it shows because less than 30% of people voted in the last mayoral election here in Atlanta. And so if you don't find better vehicles to build trust between people in the public sector, then we're not going to be able to actually get to the root of solving these issues. So all that to say that innovation is not about widgets. Innovation is about how you actually start to get to the more humanness of a challenge and actually focus on the outcome that you're trying to create. Because innovation for innovation's sake is just a fun philosophical exercise, in my opinion. So.
I like that.
Yep.
So you talked about sort of aging in place. You talk about, I'm not going to call them social entrepreneurs anymore.
Okay, all right, great.
The farmers and the...
Yeah, the greatest assets of our economy.
The humans.
Yes.
Tell us about some of the humans that you support.
Yeah. I think we have a couple here. There's one right here, actually. Jen Graham runs an incredible organization called Civic Dinners. You should see the Lovable City Initiative. But, you know, Jen, I hope you don't mind me sharing, but, you know, Jen started this organization not because she said, I want to build, you know, a huge enterprise that employs millions of people and makes millions of dollars. That doesn't mean she shouldn't do that. I hope she does. But she started this because after a pretty tough set of elections, we started to watch that people didn't know how to have conversations anymore about social and political issues that were happening. So she made a very easy way to bring people together from all different backgrounds to come together to have a conversation at the dinner table, break bread, and talk about what is happening. Yeah. But do it in a way that is reasonable. For some reason now it feels like if we don't agree on everything, then we can't be friends. And she is bringing back what Atlanta has always been good at, which is bringing diverse perspectives to the table to have a tough conversation. We have another woman named Charnette Trimble who works in a small neighborhood called Oakland City, where a number of seniors have homes that are collapsing and are not being taken care of. They've been promised that those houses would be taken care of, that we would put money toward helping them, and a lot of seniors are on fixed income. So if something happens to their home, they don't have the money to be able to fix it. And they also don't know, so now what do I do? How do I even apply for those programs? So she actually helps seniors understand better about home ownership so that they can keep their own homes. But here's why this is really important. Because in Atlanta, while the majority of this city is black, we do still have a very low rate of black home ownership. And if you don't own your asset, then you're not able to pass it on to the next generation. So for her, this isn't just an exercise of being able to keep your home. It's about people being in control of their own assets so they can pass it on and pass on wealth to the next generation. That's the difference between a civic entrepreneur and just your ordinary entrepreneur. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't have other types of entrepreneurs. It just means that civic entrepreneurs are addressing things in just a little bit of a different way.
I'm sort of wary to ask this next question because I know there are challenges in your work.
Yes, yeah.
But what are some of the big ones? And as you look at the next, CCI is 5 years old, next 5 years, what are some of the big challenges you see ahead?
I think challenge number one for me is that inherently as people, we do not value social and civic work. We think of it as charitable, right? So what that means is at the end of the day, whatever money I have left over after I have to pay my own things, whether that's me as an individual or me as an organization, then maybe I'll decide to do something else with the rest of the money that's left over. And that's the pool of money today that we reserve for tackling some of the most systemic issues that our country and our generations are facing. But we think of, supply and demand. We have that. We can understand GDP very clearly through products and services. And our social and civic issues are considered externalities. So at the end of the day, hopefully the market will correct and climate will all of a sudden get better and poverty will go away. But as we know, that's not how it works. And so I think in order for us to actually value social and civic work, we have to see it as a very important part of our local economy. I think it's important that when people are thinking about or talking about social issues, that they don't just see it as charitable or one-time things. They see it as a very important driver. The other thing is that these issues disproportionately affect people based on their identity and their geography. Issues of poverty, when we talk about it, we will skirt around the fact that we have a very, very deep history in cities like Atlanta of not taking care of many neighborhoods. And so it's very easy for us now to say, well, come on, let's have a big conference and everybody come in, pitch in some money, and we're going to fix that particular neighborhood. But that doesn't change the 70, 80, 100 years that have come before today, where people have been, their circumstances have got them stuck there. And then we tell them, come on, pick yourself up off your bootstraps. What's the problem, right? I don't understand. Why aren't people just working harder? I mean, you heard it during a presidential debate last night, right? We often put the burden of success on individuals who we've already made it difficult for them to just live their day-to-day lives. Atlanta has the highest income inequality gap in the United States. What that means is that in the same city, within just maybe a 2-mile radius, you have between Buckhead and Bankhead, you have a 20-year life differentiation solely based on where you live in this city. Solely based on where you live. That means that we have resources and attention being paid to certain places, and then resources and attention not being paid in the places that we need to. We can't just keep talking about equality, we've got to talk about equity. And what equity means is that there are a lot of folks that we have pushed before the finish line, or before the starting line, and we got to make sure that everybody is able to participate in economic growth. The last thing I want to say is that the challenges that the private sector faces are actually also similar to the public sector. In the public sector, if you are a female, particularly a female of color, it will be harder for you to raise money. And it will be harder for you to be able to get a leadership position. About 80% of the workforce in the social sector are women. Yet, if you look at the leadership, they don't look like that, right? So it is important that the conversations that I know so many amazing organizations are having around how do we address this, the social sector is not void of that. Just because it's working on social issues doesn't mean it's not misogynistic. We can't keep telling women to lean in. We got to tell men to step up. And until we can get there, you're going to have a sector that does not work. Because at the end of the day, it inherently is operating in a way that we have shown does not work. It does not look like the world. So I can't wait for my job to be replaced by a strong female leader. I can't wait for us to start valuing the people who already live here, but we haven't done that yet in the social sector. And I don't think that's any one company's responsibility. I think we got to figure out, do we actually care? And if we do, we got to operate like it.
I'm feeling really good about sitting up here with him right now. I mean, right? Like, there are T-shirts being made right now that say, "Step up," for all of the gentlemen.
There you go.
So we are at the Smart Cities Expo, so I don't want to lose sight of that. So hard.
All right, got it.
You got
Amazing.
it? Okay.
Nice, yeah.
Amazing. So where does this sort of conversation around a smart city fit into the civic innovation conversation?
So it's funny, we just recently had this conversation because I think there's either a feeling of smart cities and social and civic work need to be completely separated from each other, or we got to go all in and go, like, let's get apps that solve, this particular issue, right? And it doesn't have to be an either or. I think we have to recognize that data and technology are tools. They are a means to an end. At the end of the day, the challenges that we face in the civic sector is when we think of the technology or the data as the end. And the truth is we deal in the social and civic sector with people, and people are not data points. They're wrapped up in traditions and cultures and experiences that you're not going to be able to capture through just an algorithm. But with that said, now we can find out where those points of intervention need to happen now. We could figure out what neighborhoods do we need to pay attention immediately before a problem exacerbates. So I think we have to figure out, how do we use smart cities? If it were me, I think we should have, if you want to think about self-driving cars and smart homes, put those first in communities that need them most. Instead of putting it only to people who can afford it and making it a market commodity, if you really want to solve equity issues, you could fix transportation issues with neighborhoods that have been asking for basic public transportation. You could fix it in a second with smart technology. The problem is smart technology still seems reserved for people who can afford it. It shouldn't be a game of privilege. I think it should be a potential opportunity, which is what I hope we explore.
So you sort of answered this question in part, but I want to get it in 13 seconds.
I got you.
Organizations, what can organizations do to support civic innovation?
So I think it is doing exactly what we're doing, right? Which is be open to the conversation.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of fear today around, can we even have this conversation? Because is it appropriate? Would it hurt me? Will it hurt you? I think we have to agree inherently that we live in a time right now where if you are born in poverty, you could be stuck there. And I don't think anybody, a corporation, a social sector organization, a nonprofit, believes that you shouldn't be in control of your own destiny. And so I think if we can agree on that particular premise, there are so many ways that you can get involved. Be an advocate, be an investor, or just do the work. You could do it in everything that so many incredible companies will do. Is instead of having big programs, what they'll do is they will adapt and behave to the times. And I think that that's what's so exciting about right now, is you're watching businesses do some incredible things. The last thing I want to say is that is so Atlanta to do that. Yeah. When Martin Luther King Jr. won the Nobel Peace Prize, so many CEOs at the time did not want to welcome him back when he came back to Atlanta. They said, I don't know, it seems controversial, we shouldn't be touching that, whatever. Coca-Cola, love them or hate them, right? Coca-Cola said, if you do not celebrate and talk about social and civic issues, we will leave this city. We do not have to be in this city. But if we are in Atlanta, then we must talk about social and civic
Powerful.
issues. So that's what gets me excited. I think there's a huge role for corporations to play, but it wouldn't be the first time that they've been able to change history.
Amazing.
So
with that, thank you.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.